Let's determine if either the number of classes attended or the number of hours studied are individually irrelevant in our regression equation at the 5% significance level. So basically, we can actually determine if our variables are relevant. So although they may be included, we can go through our analysis and take all of our variables, and we can actually determine if they are even relevant and would affect our y. So this is something that is not totally obvious. There's no black or white answer for, especially when you're using multiple variables. It's hard to tell which one is not important, but this following formula and procedure can help with that. So we're going to check both of our variables. We're going to check if they're relevant. The first thing we're going to have to do is we need to set a critical value of, well, why don't we set a hypothesis test first? So our HO, our null hypothesis, would be that the variable b, and this would be sort of another variable, the first one and the second one, but would equal 0. Basically that there is no relevance. Those variables have no actual meaning to the equation. So our alternative hypothesis is that they don't equal 0. And forgive my bad strike through here just to get the point across. So they don't equal 0. Now we need to determine our t-value. Now if you have a look at our formula sheet, you'll see our degrees of freedom are n minus k minus 1. So we have degrees of freedom that equal 5 minus 2 columns minus 1. So we have degrees of freedom of 2. If we head over to our t-value, we're looking for degrees of freedom. Now this is a 5% significance level. And we know that this is a two-tails situation because it's not equal to 0. So variables can have a negative impact or they can have a positive impact, but it's not greater or less. So it's a two-tails because it can go either direction. So we'll pull up our t-table. And here we see our two tails. And we are going to choose our 5% significance on two tails, 2 degrees of freedom, and we have 4.303. So we've set our critical t-value at 4.303. So that means that if our t-value is between negative 4.303 to positive, we can just 4.03, we can reject our null hypothesis. So again, by rejecting our null hypothesis, we're saying that the variable is not equal to 0 and it does have an impact, either a positive or a negative. So to do that, we need to determine a t-value for both variables. To do that, we're going to need to use the following formula. Now, b1 is our slope that we've already determined, and this would be the standard deviation of our b1 or our column. So we haven't determined our standard deviation yet, so what I'll do is I'll just do that in Excel with you right now. We can do our standard deviation using a basic formula equals STDEV dot S, because this is for sample. And we can include our column here for our first variable, we get a standard deviation of 2.7, and I can slide it right, and I get a 2.68. So let's do a study time. Our study time variable again, our study time had a 2.70 standard deviation. So t equals 2.79. Again, we scroll up to our first where we did the. You can see here that we've set that slope at 2.79. Right, that's our b. You can also find it in your spreadsheet. 2.79 to your coefficient. Minus 0 divided by 2.7. So we would get a t that equals 1.03. Now our class attended variable, we have our slope of 4.84 minus 0. That's 2.68, which is our standard deviation. Just to make sure we're following our bedmass rules, I put those in brackets. And we get a t-value of 1.81. So what does this mean? Both variables, are within our critical value range here. So that means for both variables, we can reject our null hypothesis. Both of them are relevant to our equation. If we had more than two variables, if we had 3, 4, 5, 6, or more, multiple, we would continue this process for each one, and we would just drop the variables out that didn't fit in the equation that would fit our data. So this is how we can determine which variables are relevant and then keep them within our equation. So sometimes with multiple variables, it can be a lot of work. They all have to be done individually. These are not linked answers into this. These are just individual testing the variables to our critical t value.